Malik Beasley to the Warriors? What? We'll discuss that because that's an actual report that's out there right now. There's also some news about Klay Thompson. Happy Memorial Day weekend. I got the intern of interns, Karl Bernal, joining me next. We're going to talk Warriors. We're going to talk NBA playoffs. Let's get into it. This I'm buying time, is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. It's where we're exclusively live. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn and LinkedIn Jobs, more specifically. They help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. You can follow Karl Bernal. He is still, I guess, officially the intern of this program, one of the two, on Threads at Karl for President. That's also his handle on Instagram. You can follow me on Threads at Dog Wild. The program is there as well at Locked On Warriors. Karl, great to see you, buddy. Happy Memorial Day weekend. And let's get into it. Malik Beasley. The report came from Kelly Iko. I apologize for not knowing the pronunciation of the last name there, but he's a reporter with The Athletic. And in a column that he wrote recently, discussing everything going on in the NBA, he slid in there the fact that the Golden State Warriors are reportedly interested in soon-to-be free agent Malik Beasley. Beasley does still have 1 year remaining on his contract with the Milwaukee Bucks, but it is a player option that he's undoubtedly going to exercise. He will turn 28 years old this season. He's probably looking for a big payday given where he's at in his career. Kelly, again, either Eco or Iko, I apologize for the pronunciation, reporting that the Houston Rockets and Orlando Magic are also interested in the Milwaukee Bucks guard. This news does nothing to excite me. It does nothing to tickle my fancy, but it's out there. Not surprising considering who's still running things with the Golden State Warriors. We'll get into them in great detail. But first and foremost, Karl, how are you doing? And your immediate reaction to the idea of Malik Beasley being a member of the Golden State Warriors?
I'm great, Cy. Thanks for having me on.
Always.
Immediate reaction is this really only makes any sort of sense if Klay walks. If they let Klay walk. If they keep Klay, then this is a non-starter. It's a redundant position. But, Beasley, he can shoot the three, so that would help with floor spacing, things like that. He's not a good defender. So he's not going to add anything really on that side of the floor. It's not exciting.
No.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If for the sake of argument, it's true what you're saying, and I agree with the logic, which is that they're if they are indeed looking at him, it's likely to as a replacement for Klay Thompson. The reason why I have zero excitement about Malik Beasley, and actually before I answer that, let's read off his stats. Again, I mentioned that he's going to turn 28 years old this season. He stands 6'4". So even as a shooting guard, he's not particularly big. His stats are okay. This last season, he averaged nearly 30 minutes per game, more specifically 29.6. Played 77 games this last year. Averaged 11.3 points per game. His field goal percentage was 44.3%. His three-point percentage, which is undoubtedly why he's garnering attention, was 41.3%, even though in his career, he's a 38.5% three-point shooter. So whether or not the increase above his career average this last season was an anomaly or maybe he's been working on his shooting and it's a sign of things to come. But like you said, he's not necessarily an elite defender. And the part of this that is, and again, Latasha, I totally agree with you, not an exciting move. And the reason why it's really not exciting is the fact that the Warriors already have replacements for Klay Thompson on this roster. You have Moses Moody. Andrew Wiggins is a natural too. Hell, Kuminga could even slide over to the 2. That's an idea I broached last week because truth is, if you want to be successful next season, you're going to have a lot of size on that court. And so I guess like if you're looking at potential pieces to add to this team, and ideally you're looking at the mid-level exception, Malik Beasley, like he's such a redundancy. Like if you're looking to replace Klay Thompson, you already have that on your roster. Like why are we not seeing reports of power forwards, of swing, of wings, I'm sorry, who are 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", that can defend 4 or 5 positions? I like the fact that they're looking at a shooter, but there's even other shooters out there that can offer more. I don't get it. This doesn't excite me at all. This is just a typical Steve Kerr type a news item. I feel like this is exactly the type of player he wants. And as we're learning more and more by the day, what Kerr wants does not translate to success. Like his personnel decisions are the problem, not necessarily his coaching. That could be a whole other discussion, but who he thinks are the best players to put out there on the court. He's the same height as Brandon Pajemski. This makes no sense to me, man. The floor is yours.
Yeah. We need to be looking at size, definitely. Like someone like Jalen Smith of the Pacers. He's kind of an intriguing name that I was reading about. I would love to see a young big with upside. But yeah, more guards. Yeah, we're going to be looking at the same thing as last year if we just make moves like this. And if you want to scratch and claw to get the 10th seed again, yeah, Malik Beasley might be your man. But we need to look at some different options. And yeah, you're right. This is such a Steve Kerr move, and I don't think it's moving the needle at all.
No.
So, yeah.
And I'm glad you brought up what was the name you brought up? Jalen Smith?
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because that actually reminded me to correct myself. Malik Beasley will be an unrestricted free agent. I was actually thinking of Jalen Smith. Thank you for correcting my faux pas there. Jalen Smith is the player who will have a player option that he's undoubtedly going to decline to be an unrestricted free agent. Not Malik Beasley. Malik Beasley will be just an unrestricted free agent. He's available no matter what. And the Jalen Smith thing, because I was researching him as well, and that's why I got crossed up in my brain. I think he would be a fantastic pickup for the Warriors. Now, that is a player that fills a need, right? And this is someone who, he's on the Pacers right now? Is that correct?
Yeah.
And you barely see him play, so I highly doubt the Pacers are going to throw the bag at him. And Anthony Harris, you're absolutely right, man. This is true. Anthony Harris in the chat writes, this is why Bob Myers left. Frustration with the organization. And this is a classic point in that Steve Kerr wants his guys who are hobbits, and everyone else who watches the NBA sees how the landscape is looking in terms of what translates to success. And there's a massive disconnect there, man. It's unfortunate. It's absolutely unfortunate. But let me ask you this, because I've become, and I don't like the fact that I've become synonymous with Steve Kerr hate. I don't hate him personally. I'm just one of the only people who criticizes him as much as I do. And a lot of that is because of the fact, as Larry Krueger mentioned on the last show we did, Steve Kerr has earned so much good grace with the media, right? Like, he's a friendly person. And side note, for the folks out there who are ever curious in terms of how to improve yourself professionally, Steve Kerr is an example of how far you can go in life just being a friendly person, just having a gentle, kind, sincere approach and personality. So that it can get you far in life, right? And he's earned so much good grace. Now, I will say this, though, because, again, I criticize Steve Kerr a lot. Here's the flip side of it. I think he's a fantastic coach. He's he's been with the Warriors for 10 years, and he's literally like wrested control of all the front office decisions there, and it's been to the detriment of the team. But let me know if you agree or disagree with me on this. If Steve Kerr right now was coaching the Minnesota Timberwolves, If you gave him a roster like that, I think the T-Wolves right now would not be down 2-0. I feel like that Minnesota is an example of a team that could actually thrive if they had a Steve Kerr coached system implemented there. Do you think I'm on crack saying that? What are your thoughts, Carl?
Wouldn't say you're on crack, maybe a slightly less toxic substance. It's hard to say because listen, Kerr inherited such an amazing team. We've only seen him without a full cupboard a few times, and it hasn't gone well at all. So as much as people think that, yeah, Kerr's an affable guy, he's good with the media, and I love to listen to him talk. Like it's always pleasing to the ear. But we've never seen him coach a team up that had a bare cupboard. So
we've never seen him. Yeah, you're right. We've never seen him develop talent, and that's the biggest issue for me. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, yeah, that's pretty much all I was going to say. Is as far as I'm concerned, the jury's still out.
Absolutely. And when we come back, we're gonna finish up this conversation on Malik Beasley. There's some reports about Klay Thompson where he might end up. A second team has emerged as potentially interested in him. So yeah, and there's a lot more to discuss, and we'll get into that after we give some love to our other sponsors. And there's also a chat post or two that I'm going to address as well. One in particular, which is going to draw some funny memes or sound bites that we play on this show. But let's give some love to our sponsors first and foremost. And up on the docket right now is great friends over at LinkedIn. Carl, have you ever used LinkedIn before? Like, do you agree with the sentiment I share, which is that if you're on the hunt for a job, you're behind the curve if you don't have a LinkedIn account, or do you feel differently?
Oh yeah, I was in your class and you forced me to create one, and I think it was an absolute stroke of genius. I think anyone who wants to have any sort of career should be on LinkedIn. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and look, it's not just a tremendous resource for job seekers. It's also a fantastic resource for small businesses, entrepreneurs, anyone out there who is building something themselves and they need talent. If you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. They're not just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make this switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow Karl Bernal on Threads or Instagram at Karl for President. There's a Z in there. And follow me on Threads as well. Cyrus Saatsaz is my handle. I hope is super easy. 7 letters, dog wild. Karl, before we finish up the conversation, we sometimes have folks like Ray Lang, who we appreciate your support coming on the program. But, and maybe, you know what, I should thank you as well for a post like this, because it lets me play clips like this. Ray, first of all, wrote for the people listening on the podcast that Bob Myers was mediocre.
That's ignorant.
Yeah, that is one of the most ignorant statements I have seen in recent history on this program.
It's ignorant. You're being ignorant.
This is someone who, again, in his tenure, besides being the leading man behind 4 championships, keep in mind, he's the one who hired Steve Kerr. He's the one who drafted Draymond Green in the 2nd round. He was the assistant GM when they drafted Klay Thompson. He drafted Jonathan Kuminga, who's going to be a star. He also drafted Moses Moody. I think those are going to pan out. But it's not just the front office, the draft decisions. And look, the Warriors were so good for so long that you can't have a track record of success in the draft when you're routinely drafting in the high 20s, when you don't even have a first round pick some years. And that's why you're going to end up sometimes with a Jordan Poole, which still absolutely worked out. They won a title. Kevon Looney is another player that absolutely worked out. They won a title with him as a starting center, and he was responsible for drafting him. But it was all the maneuvering in terms of personnel that they sorely miss. Andre Iguodala as a free agent signing, David West, JaVale McGee, Jaja Pachulia, Kevin Durant, the trade that sent Kevin Durant to get Andrew Wiggins and the pick for Jonathan Kuminga. The list goes on. And to say that he was mediocre is just absolutely
Ignorant.
It's just ignorant because, like, if you think he's mediocre, who are you going to say is good as a front office exec? Give me another person who matches him. Ray, really, I want you to back it up based off everything I just said, because that is such an asinine statement to say that he was just mediocre. Again, his decisions resulted in 4 world championships. So Ray responds with Sam Presti. How many rings has Sam Presti won? How does Sam Presti do this past season when he decided to not make a significant midseason trade that resulted in the OKC Thunder underachieving? Sam Presti was also the man responsible for trading James Harden at the peak of his powers and breaking up that potential OKC dynasty. So look, Sam Presti is fantastic as someone who knows the right individuals to draft, in my humble opinion. Although I will also say Josh Giddey was a swing and a miss because they're almost definitely going to trade him this offseason. So Rob Mack, I have 2 people in the chat here saying that Bob Myers is mediocre. Back it up, all right? The world is full of opinions, all right? And you know the adage about opinions, right? They're worthless. Everybody has one. But back it up with some actual evidence. Why was Bob Myers mediocre? Now he writes the pieces were already in place. Did you not listen to me when I said that Bob Myers drafted Draymond Green, that he was the assistant GM when they drafted Klay Thompson? He was responsible for drafting Harrison Barnes, which turned into Kevin Durant. He was responsible for all the free agent signings that led to the 4 championships. And Abduo writes, and thank you. Now we have someone in the chat saying that Sam Presti, again, he got the 1 seed and failed again. And Anthony Harris adding to this, who recalls Steve Kerr in the front office of Phoenix? It was a total disaster. The point is, if you're going to call Bob Myers mediocre, which is just, again, utterly ignorant. I'll have to play the soundbite a few more times here. It's
ignorant. You're being ignorant.
Carl, your thoughts on that, man? For the people out there who are foolishly saying that Bob Myers is mediocre, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you just laid out the moves that prove otherwise. Saying Sam Presti is better than Bob Myers. Sam Presti is like, right now, until we see how this Thunder team, this new Thunder nucleus turns out, it feels like another, trust the process 76ers situation. And they never got over the hump either. So until Presti gets to the top of the mountain, I wouldn't put him in the same. I'd put him close to Bob Myers, but to say Bob Myers is worse than him, I think the rings say it all. And yeah, those moves that he made, there's plenty of them that say otherwise. So and
then again, here's Ray Lang with the recency bias saying he gave money to Jordan Poole after they won a 4th world championship. He drafted James Wiseman. Yeah, that was a swing and a miss. There's no doubt about that. They screwed that up. But keep in mind as well that it was Steve Kerr who was against making the trade to get Anthony Edwards. You're also, again, he writes, he did not draft Klay. You're right. He was only the assistant GM when they drafted Klay. He did draft Draymond Green. He did draft Harrison Barnes. Those 2 were pivotal pieces for the first championship. Harrison Barnes was flipped for Kevin Durant, which led to the 2nd and 3rd world championships. Ray Lang, I'm going to stop addressing you after this because you just keep ignoring every point I'm making and you keep like diverting. You're dropping these red herrings, which are logical fallacies here. yes, the league has gone big, fast, tall, and can shoot. He hasn't been the GM for this is now the second year he has not been the GM. So if you want to criticize Mike Dunleavy Jr. for the fact that the league has gone big, fast, tall, and can shoot, and the Warriors have a small roster as a result of that, blame Mike Dunleavy Jr. Blame Steve Kerr, because no other GM on this planet would construct a roster this small, this one-dimensional, except for a GM with Steve Kerr as your head coach. And again, thanks for ignoring all the front office, all the free agent signings that he did to surround Stephen Curry and Klay and Dre with the talent they needed. He was responsible for Andre Iguodala. He was responsible for the little decisions like the Nemanja Bjelica's, where he's responsible for Gary Payton II. Every piece on this roster that resulted in a championship not named Stephen Curry, Bob Myers has his fingerprints on them. It is ridiculous. And now you have Rob Mack saying he made bad decisions after Jerry West left. The Jerry West argument, it's valid to a certain extent in that Jerry West was an incredibly positive influence, but Jerry West was not the final say on these decisions, all right? Jerry West was a consultant. Bob Myers could have easily gone against him if he wanted to. And how the hell is Jerry West doing with the Clippers right now? Jerry West is awesome. He has a very brilliant mind, but Jerry West is also very one-dimensional in that all he does, and it's a great philosophy. I support it. But Jerry West's philosophy is get the best players out there, plain and simple. Put them together, get a great coach to make it work, and that's it. All right. Jerry West is not someone who at this stage of his career scouting potential European players to draft. So shout out, yes, absolute shout out to Jerry West, but his boss was Bob Myers. So if you're going to give Jerry West credit, it is ignorant to not give Bob Myers credit at the same time. And Rob Mack, you're now sitting here saying Jerry West was absolutely the main guy who got Iguodala here. Again, he's part of that front office. And after Jerry West left, they still won championships. Ray Lang also asked, will anyone hire Myers again? In 2 seconds. He doesn't want to be a GM right now. He has the most easiest cush job imaginable, being a broadcaster with ESPN. And again, for the two haters in the chat, you're not making yourselves look good sitting here criticizing Bob Myers. Let me repeat this one more time. When he literally is responsible for every piece around Stephen Curry, every piece. All right. And Larry Riley is the one responsible for drafting Stephen Curry, and props to him as well. But if you're going to criticize Bob Myers, man, I mean, who the hell are you giving credit to the 4 titles to? That is an absolutely ridiculous. It's ridiculous to criticize Bob Myers. I don't know why you're doing it. My guess is because you're a Steve Kerr apologist. I could be wrong. Carl, any final thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, look at
just real quick. Rob Mack, this is a lie. See, now you're just writing lies. Rob Mack writes, Bob Myers attempted to trade Steph and Klay. No, he didn't. For Chris Paul. I will confirm that is not true. That might be something someone wrote as an anonymous source saying something. That is not true at all. The only story that has some truth to it is that the Warriors were considering trading Klay to get Kevin Love, and Jerry West reportedly got involved to shoot that down. I give him credit for that. Absolutely. But again, that's one thing. And yeah, I mean, thank you. They're just trolling. That's all these idiots are doing. All right, Carl, your final thoughts before we move on from these two trolls that my fault. I took the bait that they sit here and they're ripping on Bob Myers for just most stupidest reason imaginable. Wrap it up, Carl. What do you think?
No, sometimes it's worth it to engage in the trolls just to stamp out some insanity like that. But I mean, look at the last 2 wonderful seasons without Bob Myers. Not much to write home about, really.
No.
So I mean, I fail to see why Bob Myers should be any sort of scapegoat, considering his track record. And he would be hired in a second if he wanted another job.
It's incredible. I like just the fact that he turned around. Kevin Durant was out the door, and he turned Kevin Durant. Instead of losing him for nothing, they got Wiggins and they got Kuminga for him. That was directly Bob Myers behind it. And Rob Mack in the chat is saying that Stephen Curry said it was true that they wanted to trade Steph and Klay for Chris Paul. I just don't agree. Like even if that was discussed, I'm not going to sit here and point the finger at Bob Myers as being someone who is advocating for it, trying to make that trade happen back in 2012 or whatever that was. Focus on the present, man. Don't be an a-hole and pretend that Bob Myers was not largely responsible for 4 championships. 4! You're hating on him now after he's been gone for well over a year. Why exactly? Why? I don't get it. I just don't get. I don't get that at all. We're going to talk real quick when we come back about Klay Thompson, because there's a report about him. I'm sorry, Carl. Do you have any final thoughts? I feel like I'm interrupting you endlessly. Any final thoughts on just the Bob Myers hate, which got me riled up now?
No, yeah. I mean, if Bob Myers was worth anything, we'd have 10 championships, not 4.
Yeah, I think we'd have at least 5. Like, you're ridiculous. All right, let's give some love real fast to our other sponsor for the day, and that is eBay Motors. Carl, what kind of car do you drive?
It's a blue Subaru BRZ.
Oh, that's a good car. Well, even your beautiful blue Subaru sometimes needs parts, like all cars do. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For the everydayers, follow me on Threads at DogWild. That's where I routinely post updates on the show, and the program is on Threads as well at Locked On Warriors. And you can follow Karl Bernal, Intern Karl, on Instagram and Threads at Karl for President. So let's talk about real fast Klay Thompson. Because in the same vein that Malik Beasley has been linked to the Golden State Warriors, and again, the Houston Rockets and Orlando Magic also reportedly interested in Beasley. But the other player, and again, the tie-in, the correlation with Beasley is Klay Thompson, a player that, he's been a fundamental core piece of this dynasty. His game's starting to regress a little bit. He wants a lot of money. The Warriors last year reportedly offered 2 years, $48 million. He turned that down. Who knows what the offers are right now? But Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports, and that dude comes up with so many rumors. It's crazy. He's reporting that this Philadelphia 76ers are also interested in Klay Thompson. The Sixers have some money. They have a lot of cap space. Them and Orlando both do. They've both been linked to Klay Thompson. I don't doubt for a second he would improve their team. Again, my thing with Klay Thompson is this, Karl. I don't know if you agree with me or not. I feel like he's at the Ray Allen stage of his career, right? The outside shooting is not as consistent. He's no longer like a core, a piece that can help carry you to a championship. He's much more now a complimentary, borderline role player type piece. Dude wants a lot of money. Teams like Philly and Orlando are supposedly willing to throw the bag at him. What are your thoughts on Klay, man?
Yeah, at this point, he's not a day-to-day top-tier player. He's a player that can still heat up every few games and, shoot the lights out and put up a 25, 30 spot. But the consistency is just not there anymore, and his defense is definitely gone downhill. The Sixers, it's kind of an interesting fit. Would it get them over the hump at this point? No, I don't think so. But it would be, it'd be fun to see him play with Embiid.
What are your thoughts on the postseason, man? Let's make a flip real fast here. It is wild to me that the Minnesota Timberwolves are down 2-0 to the Dallas Mavericks. I heard one of the Inside the NBA hosts, and by the way, side note, I absolutely love Draymond Green as part of that panel. He definitely adds a layer of entertainment. His perspective, for me, is very much welcomed. But I heard one of them say that if the Nuggets had beaten the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Nuggets would have been handling the Mavericks right now. But Minnesota had Denver's number, and so far, 2 games in, Dallas has Minnesota's number. Anthony Edwards looks like a player who has hit a wall. Like, he looks like someone who's completely run out of gas. He's never gone this far in the postseason in his career until this year. He's never even won a playoff series. So maybe there's some validity to him running out of gas. You've heard me say Rudy Gobert is the most overrated player in NBA history on this program. And the way Luka Doncic schooled the 4-time Defensive Player of the Year simply adds credence to that statement, which I do believe strongly in. I think Rudy Gobert should not be in those games at the end. That's just my humble opinion. He clogs the team up offensively, and defensively he's overrated. He can't stop these elite players. I mean, Luka eats him up. Jokic ate him up. But so it's been a fascinating series. It's kind of crazy that Minnesota is down 2-0. I wouldn't if I'm a Minnesota Timberwolves fan, and side note, the fans there so far I think suck. I mean, that place has been quiet, dude. I feel like those fans just don't know what to do with your team in this position, man. Like, you need your voice to be like just so loud. Like I don't feel like the Minnesota Timberwolves have home court advantage. Like, I don't see that. So the fans need to get into it a little more. Edwards may have hit a wall. We'll find that out. But I'm not hitting the panic button if I'm Minnesota. I think they got a great shot still in this. What are your thoughts on that series so far?
Yeah, I mean, they lost 2 home games against the Nuggets. So this is not new territory for them. Edwards definitely looks like a different player than he did in the last couple series. And then, Luka's a monster. Playoff Kyrie did it again. He scored a bunch of points there down the stretch. He always scares me at the end of games with what he can do. But yeah, I wouldn't hit the panic button yet. It's going to be tough to pull it off again. But this is a place they've been at before with losing games at home, and the fans, they don't get here very often. They're not sure what to do when they reach a conference finals. So we'll see if they can bring the series back to Minnesota. Maybe they'll have a little bit more oomph behind them.
Yeah, kudos to the Mavericks. I mean, they just hung around in these games, came back, and they're up in both of them. I think Minnesota's led the majority of both those games, kind of like the Lakers in that first round series against the Nuggets. But again, it's not how the first 47 minutes and 59 seconds go. It's that final second and what the score is showing at the end. And the Mavericks are up 2-0, which leads to this point. You haven't been hearing a lot of talk on this program about potential trades, potential free agents. We're going to get into all that stuff soon. This is the earliest the Warriors have entered the offseason since my time, in all my time hosting this program. The moment the NBA finals are over, we're going to dive into all that stuff. But a huge reason why I haven't touched on it yet is because something tells me when the finals are finally over, you're going to be seeing possible record-setting movement in terms of player transactions. Like, I think there's going to be so many players on new teams when the next regular season starts. And I kind of want to see where all the pieces fall from this. Like, for example, Karl Anthony Towns might be available. Like, if Minnesota loses this series, I mean, Big Cat is their highest paid player, and he's not finishing games often. His minutes are reduced at times because he struggles out there. I don't know if the Warriors want a player like Cat, but the point is there's going to be a lot of players available. And I just want to wait until the finals start before I really get into that stuff. Your final thoughts as we wrap it up.
Yeah, it should be an interesting offseason, see what the Suns do with all their with what they got left. They're going to just go in tank mode, or if they're going to try to piece something together. The Thunder with all their picks, what's the Trolls' favorite guy Presti going to do with all their picks and stuff? Will they trade for a star, or will they try to stand pat, keep developing this team? And obviously the Warriors, what they're going to do. I'm very curious because I'm not sure what kind of moves they can make to make this team good.
Absolutely. Carl, love you. Everyone, thank you. Even the trolls, thanks for making the content interesting. We'll be back at this soon. Bye-bye.